Okay, it's day 287. Been soaking this in hydrogen peroxide. You know, it's kind of just moldy there because I let it sit wet outside for a day, thinking it was going to get better. And I decided to just cut it off. So this is very green and verdant. You know, did the flick test. It doesn't sound hollow, and it's got these little scars. So, you know, there are some signs there. It's not perfect. This is my first time. But, you know, whenever I decided to go for it, if I were to measure this, it's still about 12 and a half centimeters tall. So I was wrong. It wasn't getting bigger. It was the same size. And get a knife and just cut away the bad stuff. So that's not too bad. It's just the rind, you know. It's not something that goes deeper, which means that nothing nasty would have gotten in. I'm going to kind of wash this off with hot water. It actually does have a little bit of a fragrance, but you know, it's throw this shit away. So I've washed this pretty thoroughly. Used hot soap water. Wash off this cutting board a little bit as well. Alright, so back to business. Oh, actually, that was some of the meat. So, wow, thing's got a lot of seeds in it. And I'm just going to cut away the part that I deemed rotting out of. You know, it's not necessarily inedible. It's just that part was. I think it was starting to rot though. It's better that I don't eat that. Toss that. So it has the fragrance of honeydew. It's not very as fragrant as I expected it to be. You know, these seeds are really compact. So I'm gonna change settings and basically start eating this stuff. All right, so I'm gonna start eating. I'm kind of surprised that you know, the size of these things. It's a lot smaller than a supermarket honeydew. Tastes pretty good. You know, for some reason I feel a little bit of an emotional attachment to these seeds. I feel like I have some sort of obligation to plant all of them, but there's so many seeds here, it'd probably be like, I don't know, well more than the original honeydew melon these were spawned from, which had maybe 250. Now, I'm not doing a count here, but oh, it could have maybe 250. Looks like it could be around that same number. So as for sweetness, I think it's roughly the same as a supermarket honeydew. I think under ideal growing conditions, it would be a lot sweeter because I'd have a lot more leaves and they'd be all basking in the sun, from 7 till dusk every day. But as it is on my balcony, I don't get sun anymore from 7 until noon. And in the afternoon, the sunlight is really limited to basically anything that's hanging over the railing. So that really limits the production of sugar and carbohydrates for this melon. It's pretty good. I'm not sure that it's completely ripe because it's not mushy inside. It's pretty crunchy. So I think just that water there at the bottom, I made a saran wrap plastic sling to hold this and tied it against the railing for 2 weeks before I built those tables to rest these melons on. And I think what happened is this is actually not ripe yet. It's just that water sitting at the bottom pole there caused it to start rotting. And that rot made it all the way in here, which is where I made an excision. So I think this actually had a ways to go, and thus, I think with the 2 new tables, this shouldn't happen again. And I should be able to get melons that are sweeter and more ripe. This one is somewhere in the middle, somewhere around what you would get in a supermarket. Yeah, overall I'd say it's pretty good. It's just lacking in size and a little bit in ripeness. So the center is the most tender region and the sweetest. It's got the most water. When you get next to this thin rind, it's a little bit, more bitter, salty, I would say. I think if that whole saran wrap sling episode with rot at the bottom pole hadn't happened, I could have let this sit on the vine for a few more weeks, even maybe 2 or 3 weeks, and a lot more sugars would have been pumped into this thing. It would have been a lot sweeter. So now that I know what's going on and I've made, steps to address it, hopefully my next melons will be a lot sweeter than the ones I eat in supermarkets.
For those of you who are concerned about my pesticide use, in the beginning I treated with beta-cyfluthrin many times on the vines, but it seemed like within days I had a resurgence of spider mites, so it wasn't that effective. It has a half-life of 5 days in some field tests, and that means within a month it's all gone basically, especially in outdoor conditions where it degrades quicker. And later on I used triazicide very recently within the last 2+ weeks, and that basically also has a very short half-life. And I've been struggling with my ginger series because I've been spraying that stuff, and by the next day or two I have a huge resurgence in fungus gnats as if nothing had happened. So if it can't harm fungus gnats, then I'm not worried about me. And also the hydrogen peroxide soaking in the beginning of this video would have degraded any pesticide molecules that were remaining on the rind. So when I cut through it with a knife, it doesn't spread into the center of the fruit while I'm eating.
So that was not bad. It's maybe a standard honeydew eating experience based on what you can buy in the supermarket and grocery stores. So yeah, it's definitely not anywhere near being ripe. It's kind of really hard to dig, next to the rind here. I would have thought that I'd be able to carve more meat off that. But, hopefully I'll get some bigger or even better melons in the future that have a much higher sugar content, because what I've heard from all the online literature is that Homegrown melons can have a much higher sugar percentage and they're much more flavorful due to being ripened on vines. So we'll see what happens over the next few weeks.